Business Sidekick.
Hello all, this is Justyna, content writer at LiveChat, a company that creates online live chat application for e-commerce. And this is Business Sidekick, a podcast helping to grow your online business. Today my guest is Bill Macaitis, a tech industry expert, former Salesforce and Zendesk executive who was hired as Slack's first chief marketing officer in 2014. We're discussing how to grow your business, about the most important metrics, about the importance of customer experience, and I couldn't resist it. I had to ask about the biggest mistakes and biggest successes. I hope you're curious enough, so here comes the chat. I hope you'll like it.
Business Sidekick.
All right. Hello, Bill. It's a great pleasure to have you in Business Sidekick, and thanks a lot for accepting my invitation.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Can you please tell our listeners something about yourself? You've been working on so many exciting projects.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've had the opportunity to work with some incredibly fast-growing SaaS startups. So I worked with Salesforce for about 4 years there as their SVP of Marketing, went on to Zendesk as their CMO and took them public. Then went to Slack as a CMO/CRO, where I led marketing, sales, customer success, customer support. And just recently, I've actually switched over to doing full-time board roles and advisor roles. So helping other startups kind of go through the same growth trajectories that I saw with those companies.
Okay, so you currently offer your knowledge about the market, about the business and customer service. So please tell me, is there a secret recipe for success?
Yeah, what is the secret recipe? I don't know. That's a pretty broad question there, but I think there. One thing I found out over the years too is there isn't one single playbook that works at every company. What we did at Salesforce was different than what we did at Zendesk, and what was different at Slack. So I think all of them take a very customized approach, and that's going to vary a little bit based on the company, the dynamics, and kind of the market position.
The funny thing is that people think that there is one golden strategy that could help them to be successful. But the truth is that if we copy someone else's strategy, it won't bring you spectacular results.
Yeah, I think from a tactic standpoint, that certainly holds true. If maybe I'll go on a ledger and contradict myself and maybe say if there was one thing I think applies to all companies is I'm a very passionate believer in customer-centric companies. So companies that really listen to their customers, companies that understand what their pain points are, companies that track things like their Net Promoter Score and run CSAT surveys and just have a really close pulse on the customer and just being obsessive about delighting them and going over and beyond. And I think that's one truism that will stay no matter, what company you're at. And that's going to make you successful. I've never met a company that has really customers that absolutely love them that wasn't successful. Mm-hmm. Now, from a tactic standpoint, I did a ton of SEO, back in the 90s and early, 2000s. And that was hugely successful. That was when I was more on the B2C side, and I worked for Fox Interactive Media and IGN, and we grew an empire of 175 million unique visitors.
Yeah, I was supposed to ask you about a couple of tips, but I see you already shared it. And you also mentioned NPS, and as far as I know, that's one of the most important metrics for you, is it?
I'm a strong believer. So yeah, it's NPS is Net Promoter Score, and it basically asks your customers on a scale of 1 to 10 how likely they are to recommend you. And there's also a very simple follow-up question, which asks why. And, at the end of the day, just asking that simple survey question to your customers allows you to understand, what are the top 3 reasons that people are recommending you? And what are the top 3 reasons they're not, right? And they're both really important to know.
Yes, exactly. And, I was speaking recently with my colleague about NPS, and he said that it's something that works the best for enterprise companies, because this score isn't really useful for small or medium businesses. Is it something you could agree with?
I don't know. I mean, I might disagree a little bit with that. And let me say, NPS is an incredible signal. It's not the be-all, end-all, metric. But I think it's one of the most important metrics out there. I think there's a lot of different philosophies on how to implement Net Promoter Score. Some companies will do the bare minimum and only survey 1% of their users and get statistically significant score in there. I lean towards a little bit more proactive, where you want to know the NPS of every single one of your customers. And when I say even customers, I'll even break that down. So like, for instance, at Slack, we had a customer, let's say like IBM was a customer of ours. It's not just knowing what one person at IBM thinks, but knowing every single person that uses Slack at IBM thinks. So that allows you to understand what is the pulse, the health of the entire account. It also helps you understand like, hey, who are your best champions at IBM? Who really doesn't like you? And if the head of procurement doesn't like you, that's a warning flag, right? Or if you're filming a video case study and who's giving you a 10 out of 10 and they're just, waxing poetically on how great you guys are, that's probably a good person to approach to get that testimonial. So I think that does apply to small companies too. Now, you could argue, I think NPS sometimes is a little bit more reactive on the features that customers want. And sometimes, like an iPhone, I don't think anybody through an NPS survey said, I want to see an iPhone. So I think for your vision, you have to think a little further out. But I think for just listening to kind of the core issues that customers have with your product and being, proactive and addressing them and having a great dialogue with your customers, it's an incredible tool for that.
Yes, definitely. But there are other ways you can make customer experience even more amazing.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I've always thought the brand is not just a logo or a slogan. The brand is the sum of every single experience that someone has with your company. And when you think about that transcends teams and functions. It's not just marketing that's influencing the brand. It's your sales team. It's your customer support team. It's your product. It's your trial. It's when they have to deal with someone in legal. All those are little micro experiences. And are they having a great experience with your brand or a crappy experience with your brand? And those add up. At the end of the day, you're going to have a promoter that's out recommending you to 20 people, or you're going to have a detractor saying, never use this company. So I think, when you think about that overall experience, you just have to, one, step back and go like, look, this is every single team in the company, which is why actually I think like NPS is not necessarily a marketing metric. I think it's a company metric. That should be a company goal, much like saying we want to hit X level of annual recurring revenue, or we want to have this many users, like we want to have this NPS score. Now, at a micro level, I think you can get more feedback. So NPS is good for your overall, but what we like to do too is we would do CSAT surveys, so customer satisfaction surveys, at individual point in that user's life cycle. So for instance, one of the things we did, which I thought was pretty cool at Slack, was we did a survey after someone bought from us. So if you worked with a salesperson, we would, after you finish that engagement, we would go back and ask that buyer, like, hey, did you have a good experience with your salesperson? Were they responsive? Were they helpful? Did they have a lot of domain expertise on the topics and the questions you were asking? And that allowed us to, maybe counterbalance the traditional metrics that you would comp a salesperson on, just being on, pipeline and ARR and deals closed, with like, hey, are they living up to the values we want? We want them to have a good experience too. We don't want you to oversell people. We don't want you to promise features that don't exist. So I think like really you can embed that experience into every single function of a company.
But everything starts from people, right? And you cannot send dozens of surveys just to check if your department is doing a great job. So how to manage people, how to make them understand that their behavior towards customers should be always top-notch?
I think, it starts off in a couple ways. And you said it right, too. You have to be a little careful not going survey crazy. Nobody wants 1,000 emails. So the couple things I recommend there is, one, when you do a survey, make it really short. I mean, it's one of the reasons I like NPS. It's 2 questions, right? It's not a 40-question questionnaire. The second is like we would put in rules so no one will get more than one survey over 6 months. That would help limit it. And then the third is I think, you can be very prescriptive in when you send those surveys. In other words, like throughout the life cycle, and just think about really importantly where you want to get it. Now, at the end of the day, you're right, it's people. And I do like metrics to incentivize people for the right behavior. But at the end of the day, too, I think you really have to think about what are your company's core values? Have you gone through that exercise where you've articulated, here are the 3 values of our company? And what we would do a lot, at Zendesk and at Slack, is we would hire people off those values. A lot of our interview questions were actually trying to tease out, did you hit the values? So for instance, at Slack, we had a value of empathy, and we would try to understand, is this person, could they put themselves in our customer's shoes? And it's little things, like during an interview process, do they open the door, do they ask if you need some more water, or, just are they thinking about the other people? And that was a value that was really important to us. I think it's one of the things I always recommend to the clients I work with is a B2B brand can have a personality, and it should have a personality. You want to think about the voice, the tone, you want to have fun. most B2B applications are crap, right? They were built by giant enterprises. They're on-prem. They're painful. They take 6 months to learn how to use. And you have this whole new wave of SaaS applications coming out that are, that are consumer grade. They're easy to use. They're fun. And it's one of the most important things. I think a lot of companies have this debate. They go, we're moving up market, or we're selling to businesses. We can't, our brand can't be funny, or it can't have a personality. Like, no one will. And it's something I can emphatically say that's not true. I have sold to the largest enterprises in the world with brands that have personality. Zendesk, we had Booty for a while. That was great. At Salesforce, we had Sassy, kind of a mascot. At Slack, we tried to infuse that brand, that personality, that tone into everything we did. And now, all that being said, that's hard, right? You have to think about, what is your tone? You articulate it. You have to train people. You have to certify people. And again, if you believe the brand is the sum of every single experience, you're not just certifying and training your marketing team. You're training your customer support team, your sales team. You're infusing that brand into the product. So you're talking to product people on how to infuse that in. So it is tougher to do, but I think it creates a much greater affinity with your overall brand when you do it.
But we're also talking here about content marketing. That's also something that's very important for branding, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of content marketing. And I think you have to do content marketing in the right way, though. There are sometimes you run into a company who tries to do content marketing, but it's just brochureware. It's just, a glossy pamphlet telling, prospect why their company's awesome. And to me, that's not content marketing. Content marketing is about when you understand the pain points of your customers, and you're talking about those, and you're giving them helpful information, and you're guiding them, and you're educating them, and you're not putting a hard sell on them, and essentially what you're doing is you're building up trust with them. You're building a relationship. I would give the example of, on the B2C side, if you were out buying a new TV, right, and you're like, whoa, like there's this 4K out and LED and LCD, and I don't know where to start. You start researching, and you're going to look for information. It helps, educate you and understand you. And sometimes some retailers are really good at giving that information out and guiding you through. And when you're ready to make the decision, a lot of times you're like, okay, I trust this brand. I'm going to go with them. Trust this retailer because they've helped me out. And I think the same is true in B2B. A lot of people, when I worked at Zendesk, for example, one of our most popular articles, which got us literally like 100,000, views per month, was an article just on, interview questions to ask when you're hiring a customer support agent. And you got to understand, like in the customer support space, a lot of times, you get promoted up. You're now a manager, you're hiring a team, and you've never interviewed someone before in your life. You're like, what questions do I ask, right? And so, they search, they find Zendesk, they read that, they start to see all these other articles that we have, like, hey, how to manage a virtual team, which metrics to use. They develop a relationship, and then at some point, that customer support manager, maybe they try out Zendesk and they bring it into their organization, or maybe they then go to another company and recommend Zendesk. And so, content marketing is basically just a way of saying, like, do good by your customer. It's kind of like that whole customer-centric philosophy. Help them out, like, be on their side. Put yourselves in their shoes. What pain points do they have, and help them. And at Slack, we did. We kind of took it one step further. As opposed to just traditional content marketing, which is usually like writing articles and having resource, we did podcasts. And it was incredibly successful. We had millions and millions of views, and we got our cost per listen down so low. It was almost like, I think, 5 or 6 cents per listen. And this were people that are listening for 20 minutes to half an hour and developing a brand, developing a relationship with your company. So I think content marketing can be incredibly successful for different startups out there.
Also, you need to measure it somehow. I'm not talking about content marketing only, but about marketing in general. So can you share a couple of metrics that are important for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, at a high level, when you think about content marketing or even brand, I'm a big proponent of measuring the brand metrics. So aided recall, unaided recall, sentiment, share of voice, share of conversation. Those are all really good metrics that help you understand, is your company's name out there? Do people even know about you? And that's an issue too, because a lot of times when you're a startup, you're in maybe a city that's surrounded by other startups and people know you. Like when I first started Slack, everybody in San Francisco seemed to know about us. And you can kind of, it's like you drink too much Kool-Aid. You're like, oh, everybody knows about us. We're great. And then I'll fly out to the East Coast and I'll speak at a conference and no one knows about you, right? So you have to understand, like, hey, go into the eyes wide open that not everyone's going to know about you. And part of a goal of, marketing in general is to help get the word out. But also sentiment's important. So not only just do people know about you, but what is their perception of you? Are you very favorable? Or are you unfavorable? That's really important. Like I mentioned before, I'm big on things like Net Promoter Score, CSAT. Of course, if you're in SaaS, you're going to have all your traditional SaaS metrics, your CAC, your payback, your efficiency. There's a lot of good ones there. But at the end of the day, like I said, I lean more towards long-term thinking, helping companies build categories, not just to get into 5 million ARR, but 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion in ARR. And to do that, you really have to have long-term thinking. And I think sometimes marketing teams get a little too short-sighted. If they're only obsessed with just getting leads in the door, they're not really thinking about the entire life cycle of that customer. They're not thinking about the experiences. And not only that, if you're just focused on leads, you can do some really bad things to customers. You can gate every single piece of content you have. The very first experience with your brand is a landing page. I call it the prison landing page, right? You click on an SEM ad, you go to that, you can't get out of it. The only thing you do is fill out all your information, 17 fields. You're going to get called before you even find out what this company is. It's just a bad experience. So I think, long-term metrics that incentivize good customer-centric behavior, those are my favorites.
So basically, what you would suggest to make your overall customer experience even more awesome? Is there a checklist of the most important stuff?
I think, probably the biggest things I could say is, one, have organizational alignment around it. So one thing that helps, like I said, when I was at Slack is by having me or having a leader in charge of all the customer-facing teams, so support, success, sales, marketing, it did allow us to have a unified goal, providing a great experience and having hard metrics behind that incentivize the team, that team's compensation was based off of. I think that's really important. I think, as we talked about earlier, the values, hiring people that fit those values of what you're going after. So if you're customer-centric, having a value like a courtesy or an empathy, that helps, Now, every company is different, and you're going to have to, decide what your own values are. That's really important. And the last thing is like we said earlier, just recognize that, that brand is the sum of every single experience. You have to be obsessive about every single team, every single interaction, measuring it, understanding, is it positive, is it negative, have those feedback loops in place so you're constantly getting inputs and signals from your customers. It's like one of my heroes is Jeff Bezos at Amazon. And I mean, talk about an incredible guy. Came from the investment field side of the house, but he's just obsessed with customers, and I think, he has a great quote on just...
But he's also said to be a really bad boss.
Well, I can't comment on that. I don't know. I've never worked at Amazon. But I do... But I do like the idea. So I'll give you one last example there. Like, he talks a lot about at Amazon, they have inputs and outputs. So a lot of companies will come out and say, well, what's our goal for this year? Our goal is to hit, $1 billion in revenue. And what Amazon does, they don't do that. They don't say we have a goal around revenue, because basically what he says is revenue is an output of what you do. The inputs for Amazon, for instance, are lower prices and better product depth and breadth, and faster shipping times. Like, those are all inputs. So those set goals to improve all those, and the output then that comes out of that is more revenue. But I see too many companies that just say, our goal for the year is just to hit this revenue. And they're not really talking about the inputs or the customer type of inputs that focus on the customer experience. So that's just a lesson I always thought was a great point there.
Oh yes, knowing your customer journey is really important. Okay, I'll be having a last question. I'm wondering, what was your biggest problem you've been able to resolve thanks to your, marketing superpowers? Can you recall?
Well, I'll tell you something that did not work. This is a funny story. So we were at Salesforce. I was at Salesforce, and I'd been there a couple of years, and we put in some pretty sophisticated, marketing technology stack that would allow us to analyze our conversion path, our flow. We had a good feedback loop with customers. And around the time, we were thinking about our high-level positioning and what should we go out with. And, working with, Mark and the team. And we had this idea of this vision of, Salesforce is the social enterprise. It was all about social and mobile and the world switching over from email to messaging and just this idea behind that. And so we put on the homepage, Salesforce, the social enterprise. And it was great. And like the press loved that message, the analysts loved that message. But the issue was our conversion rates really started dropping. Oh. And so we started talking to people, they're coming to the homepage. And we're like, what happened? And we're doing session recordings and a lot of surveys. And basically, like, everyone thought, or at least like just the average prospect that was coming to the site was like, oh, I thought you sold, software to nonprofits. Like, that's what you did. Because you're social enterprise, right? So that was a good example sometimes of, I think on positioning, a lot of times you can go a little too far out there. I've often heard companies describe themselves, they're the next generation platform for disrupting this vertical, and they'll talk to you for a minute, and after you're like, I have no idea what you do. And sometimes you just got to use like really common language and wording that they understand and that they're going to go and take the next step. Because at the end of the day, your product incredibly well, but you got to put yourselves again in the shoes of a prospect who's he's never heard of you. He's going to your website. He has maybe he's going to spend 6 seconds on that page. And if he doesn't understand what it is, he's going to bounce and go somewhere else.
Exactly. I agree. And what about your biggest success?
Biggest success for me, it's just I've been really fortunate. For me, I have so much fun watching companies scale and grow, and I've been fortunate. I've had about 5 exits, and just helping companies get to the point to where they can make those next milestone leaps from going from 10 million to 100 million or 100 million to $1 billion, or Salesforce like $1 billion to $3 billion. Like, those are all so much fun to me. And at the end of the day, I love
like a good
making
fun to me as well.
Yeah, it's fun to see these companies scale, but like I said, I get really personally rewarded when I think that a lot of the products and services out there, especially for SaaS, like it's making the world better. It's a better place. You're helping people out with really core pain points. And that's very gratifying to me. And when you can implement a go-to-market strategy that's based on the customer, good things happen. So that's been some of the things that I've been, most proud of over the years.
All right. Thank you very much. And the last thing I'd like to ask you, can you please say a couple of words of encouragement for small and medium businesses owners that listen to this podcast?
You can absolutely do it. There's never been a time in history where the cards have been so stacked in your favor. Like the small business, the reason I love small businesses, my wife runs a small business, it's because the voice of the customer has never been stronger. If you have a great product, a great solution, a great service, the word is going to get out there. I often look at marketing is the fuel to the fire. If you can create that spark, you can apply the marketing to help get the word out. But there's never been a better time where the voice of the customer has been more powerful. And with SaaS, your entrance, your barriers to entry are completely lowered. You have access to so much great software to run your business where you can just focus on your core competency. So I'm super optimistic. I think, SaaS is an iceberg of companies out there. And I talk to so many companies now. Every single vertical, you're having these incredible solutions coming out. And I'm just so optimistic on it. So, stay with it. You can definitely do it. Every year there are, dozens and dozens of companies that are going to be billion-dollar companies down the road. And just know that, you've got a lot of people that are rooting for you.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. That was fun.
Good deal. Well, thanks again so much for having me on here. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Business Sidekick.
All right, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Bill as much as I did. If you want to listen to other interesting interviews, visit our website livechatinc.com/podcast or subscribe on iTunes or SoundCloud. Stay tuned, as in 2 weeks I'm going to publish another awesome interview. All the best. Take care.
This podcast was brought to you by Lifetime.